Dan Thompson's sight of this bench in a Penrith park in 2016 began his link to a soldier who fought and died in World War I. On the front is a small plaque bearing the name of William Gibson Clarke. Dan, who was visiting from Kent, wanted to discover the story behind it.
I was working in Penrith about 2 years ago and sat on this bench, which has a plaque to Private Clarke, and went to the museum and asked who he was, and nobody knew. And when nobody knows something, I just want to find out. So I spent 2-3 years finding out about Private Clarke and his life.
Private Clarke was killed 100 years ago today in an Allied offensive that turned the tide of the war.
Private Clarke was a soldier who went out to Canada, lived in Canada, served with the Canadian forces, and his family were living in Penrith when he was killed 100 years ago today at the Battle of Amiens.
He served with Lieutenant James Tate, who was originally from Dumfries and whose bravery was commemorated in the town earlier this week. Lieutenant Tate was awarded the Victoria Cross for his actions, but died just a day after Private Clarke. Dan has written a book about his discoveries, and today he's been sitting on the bench to pay his own personal tribute, even though he lives nearly 6 hours away in Margate.
I think the sacrifice of World War I is remarkable, it is incredible, and the fact that so many of these little personal stories are forgotten is really powerful. We have to start remembering these people or we'll make the same mistakes again.
Dan has even been out to visit Private Clarke's grave in France. Such is the connection he now feels to the man who's commemorated on this simple bench. Tim Backshall, ITV News, Penrith.